Hey everybody, it's Melissa Sorrentino. I am here to put another installment into my hashtag divorce diary. Yesterday was an awesome day. I had a choir concert and it was super fun. And it worked out very well because it was already scheduled for the weekend after my ex-husband and I spent that day together that I posted as a video of us both talking about our divorce experience. And I think it must have been very interesting because I got like 50 hits, like just within a very short period of time, even though barely anybody even knows that I'm even making these podcasts, so or vlogcasts, as it were. I'm kind of recognizing that this is clearly either an interesting subject or something that may be somewhat universal. It doesn't have to be that you've ever been in a divorce, but we've all had relationships and they don't always last forever. So the idea of a breakup is something very common to all of us. And also the idea of being true to ourselves and making decisions and big decisions and choices and then seeing how that pans out. I know one of the biggest reasons I Google stuff, and maybe why you Google stuff, is because you're faced with a decision. So you start Googling like, what do people say who chose A? And what do people say who chose B? And where do I fall in that? Or what did people do in order to help them solidify their choices and decisions? So I just want to very briefly chime in with one particular about our divorce that I think, may interest you. Take it or leave it. I'm absolutely not advising that people do things the way that I did them. I just want to put it out there the way that I did do them and what positive or negative results I've personally achieved out of the decisions that I have made. So if you watch the video of us together, there's a little bit more information that tells just a smidge more backstory about how we came to this point where we ended up getting divorced. Now, I know quite a few people who are divorced. I mean, we all do. And one of the things that's kind of a common theme that I've heard, for some reason, particularly from my male divorcee peer group, is the feeling from there's at least 3 that I could name right now off the top of my head, guys, who they felt like their wife really sprung it on them. Like they really felt very, I want to say betrayed, but I don't know that might be too deeply emotional a word, but they just felt like the rug was pulled out from under them. Like what the hell? 2 out of 3 of these people, for example, the woman had already met someone else and was sort of leaving them for that person. I know certainly a lot of women friends that I have that have had that happen too. We didn't really talk a lot about the cheating on situation, although of course that happens. But in my experience, I do believe that part of why Ben and I can get along and we can move forward with a rather high level of healthiness, although certainly I will say our marriage went through periods where it was not very healthy. A lot of the stuff our behavior was really not very pretty many, many times. I'm going to just out that right now. No blame, no judgment, no details, but definitely, we had reached a point where I think a lot of people would have gotten a divorce by then, or they maybe would have cheated on the other party by then, or they would have done, X, Y, or Z. Ben and I did not, and that was honestly, it's not necessarily because we had a greater love for each other than any of you people do. We did and do still have a strong love and connection with each other, but it's a level of respect, of self-respect that we each went into the marriage with. Like I committed to Ben, but I also committed to the concept of marriage, and so did he. And we both always knew that about ourselves, that one day when I get married, I'm going to be in it to win it. And that definitely played out through the duration of the relationship, and even at the end. There was no cheating. There was no looking to the right or to the left while the marriage was taking place. It was only towards the very tippy tip ending that it started to open the mind, at least, on my end of like, well, since we're getting a divorce, is there going to be anybody else out there for me? Or is this like, am I letting go of the one love affair that I'm allotted in life, and I already had it and I blew it, so the end. I've had others prior, but like the real, like the marriage, that really heavy duty, I guess I'm going to say sort of legalistic concept that you have like one, monogamous relationship, that's your spouse. As a woman, as the person who was, in a more traditional sense, I believe, for me, what took place was I took on a stronger sense of responsibility for relationship. Ben, absolutely, kudos to him. He took on all the responsibilities that he felt were appropriate to him. I definitely, I got to a level of over functioning as the relationship keeper. And I think that was probably exhausting for him. But unfortunately, what he didn't realize, even though I was verbalizing it, and I was, have you ever heard the phrase, you got to let him see you bleed? He could see me bleeding, but I guess he just wasn't looking. A lot of times when one spouse declares that a relationship is over, they have been thinking about it for a long time. They've reached a level where they actually are to a point of saying, I can't live this way anymore. I am done. And when they say, I can't live this way anymore, I'm done, I recommend you listen to them. Because those words don't just come from nowhere. They come from a backstory leading to that point. And very likely there have probably been some signs and signals up to that point, but maybe there aren't. Not everybody's a great communicator. Ben, surprisingly, on the video, he is a good communicator. He had the potential of it. But I won't go into details why, but we had a tough time communicating very often. I clearly, I hope clearly, I'm big on communication. But I did something that was a self-sacrificing choice that I made. And it was out of respect for Ben and out of respect for his future. There was a time when I could have just said, we're done here. Got some papers written up, put them, in front of him and said, sign these, we're done. I stayed in the relationship 2 solid years after that. It seemed fair to me to, rather than, some people use, I'm going to leave this relationship as a ploy or a tactic, and then they sort of let it play out. Like, I'll tell him I want a divorce and then see what he does about it. I did tell him genuinely that I was considering divorce. But I also told him that there were certain things that, if they could change, I would absolutely like to stay in the relationship. Those things didn't change, but I gave it a really long period of lead time. And that was prior to the 2 years that I'm talking about. Once I reached decision level, I verbalized that I was like, I am really wanting, my choice would be to get a divorce at this point. But I recognize that you're not where I'm at. So we went into, he started sleeping in the spare room, and we lived that way for about the last year and a half that we were, in the same house and still married. I was still holding on to a hope. I did not cheat. I did not look outside the marriage, but my heart and mind was already really looking very definitively that, as Ben would say, if you didn't pull a rabbit out of a hat in that amount of time, it probably wasn't going to happen, because it had been many years, and it just was what it was. I would never have enough time to talk it all through here, and I wouldn't on a video. It's just too personal. But I believe this. I believe an upfront investment often has a very solid long-term payoff. It's a big part of my belief system. And I invested the last, I'll say year and a half, 2 years of our technically married life to just allowing him to calm, chill, and let it sink in. Because I recognized that it was not sinking into him. I think he was just kind of going around thinking like, we'll just keep going. He's very much more like, I want to say didn't see the forest for the trees, if you guys know that phrase. Just he was very much always like, what's this week's paycheck? What's today's task list? And I was really trying to get him to see a wider breadth of our future was not, we were not pointing in the right direction, that sort of thing. And he just wasn't really getting it. And so I felt like I just could see, there was something I sensed in him that I was like, man, I don't want him to have a story looping, running for himself in his heart and in his head and with his conversations with other people. I don't want him to leave this relationship with a story of, well, she just sprang it on me. It was like there was nothing I could do. She said, she wanted a divorce, and, I gave it to her. I didn't want him to have to pick up pieces for like 5 years by himself and not even know what had happened, like other people had told me they'd gone through. There are like these 3 gentlemen that I'm telling you about that I happen to know. Actually, I can think of one more now, and a couple of women, where it just doesn't seem fair. I understand. It's like you guys are in a race together, and for me, I just felt like if we had a nice, tidy divorce, it would set us both up to be able to kind of hit the ground running in our new single, individual, autonomous lives, separate from each other, forward. It would be a positive thing that would play out with a shorter mourning period for us if we went ahead and kind of mourned in the same house while he was getting some logistics done, while I was getting some logistics done. I don't know if that was the best choice. I don't know if that was something that maybe ended up drawing things out longer than they needed to, but I think they would have been drawn out anyway. The heart takes as long to heal as it takes. And I was allowing my heart to begin healing while he was still there. That was also for me too, because I knew that I was going to be a serious emotional wreck. I already was. And so it was helpful to me to have him kind of still helping like hold down the fort, as it were, while I sort of allowed that emotional healing to begin, so that I would be like strong and tough and ready to face the world. I think he might have sensed that too. He might have sensed that I needed that, while I sensed that he just needed to grasp, embody the reality of what was really taking place. And being in a different room made it very, very clear that he was going, to be facing divorce, and that it was real and it was happening. And I definitely feel that it was worth it, even though it did take like a chunk of time out of my life. And I could have probably gotten things rolling for myself earlier, but I didn't know for sure how it was going to pan out. And it just seemed the appropriate thing to do, along with all the other variables that were taking place. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're looking at it going, well, geez, I've been divorced for a year and a half and I wouldn't even sit at the same table with my husband, my ex-husband or ex-wife, and I can't believe those people are doing it. It's partly because we did have some lead time. So I want to be honest about that, and I want to let you guys know that time is not quite as short as it appears. And Ben, being like a dude that, like, you know, I had to hit him, you know, on the side of the head with a giant brick to get him to, like, like, recognize that I really mean what I'm saying. I knew it would take that long for him to get it. And as you could see from our video yesterday, he really has accepted it. That's the word I'm, like, digging for, accepted it. I gave him time to accept it. And I feel good about that. I feel good in my heart about that. I feel like I did a kindness to somebody that was very good to me for 2 decades in many, many ways. Although not in every way, or else we'd still be together. But I'm going to keep just sort of visiting some of the things that led up to our divorce in this divorce diary, as well as my daily life as I'm rolling forward, because I want to share that, and I want to feel less in a vacuum. And these videos do make me feel that way. So I hope you guys enjoy watching them, whatever reason it is, even if it's just that kind of like, let me peek in this person's window and see what they do. I don't mind. So you know what? Peek in my window. Peek in this window right here. Okay? I'll talk to you guys later. I wish you all the best.